Hey everybody, it is I, MisterSkids. So it's been a while since I've put focus on the Mystery Skulls animated music series. That's because I've been really busy working on other projects which have been taking up a lot of my time. However, after sitting down and chewing on the tiny bits of leaked info that came from Mystery Ben, I believe I have an idea what happened to Lewis in the storyline, and what is to come. So before Hellbent is released, I wanted to give my thoughts on the matter. I also get bragging points if it turns out I'm right! In my last video, I stated that it might have been Mystery or the spirits called the Deadbeats that gave Lewis his abilities. But what if it runs deeper than that? Back then, I didn't have as much information as I do currently. But now I have a few clues on what made Lewis into a spiritual creature. One of my theories is that perhaps Lewis himself was the reason behind gaining his ethereal form. I think that when he was alive, he might have practiced voodoo, or some other aspect of the occult arts. And of course, I have several pieces of evidence before you guys get your objections ready. First, let's go back to the freaking out video. I pointed out that there was a lot of items of the supernatural nature in the van. These items ranged from holy water and Japanese charms to crystal balls and garlic. Now, it's easy to say that these items belong to Vivi, who is heavily into the occult. But who's to say that it wasn't Lewis that got Vivi into that? Or perhaps vice versa? Officially, Ben came out to say that as a boy, Lewis showed up at the Peppers family residence, roughed up and nearly unconscious. Even with their best efforts, the couple couldn't figure out where he came from or what happened to him. So he could have been into things like voodoo before he even entered their lives. It could have even been the reason behind why he was hurt in the first place when he showed up at their home. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I haven't explained why I believe it's voodoo. This is actually due to Ben's official announcement of the Mystery Skulls album back in August 2017, titled One of Us. Take a good look at this picture. Now, it would have been extremely easy for Mystery Ben to just throw an image of normal Ghost Lewis here. Something t-shirt worthy that anybody can recognize. But he didn't. Oh no. This is a trail of breadcrumbs, my friends. The most noticeable thing is definitely how ragged and beat up he looks. He has a giant hole in his chest, which might be a reflection of when he fell into those stalagmites back in Ghost. His hair is barely there, his clothing is torn and stained, he might even be missing an eye. This could be what is to come. We know that Shiramori is going after the gang, and we know that Lewis nearly got into a fight with her already. Now with him on the chase, he'll probably meet and face off with her again, since Vivi will probably be in danger. There's also the strong possibility that Mystery will be a part of the fight as well. However, the strangest thing about this image is not Lewis himself, but what he's holding. A white deadbeat and a bottle with a label. Judging from the look of the deadbeat's eyes, we can assume that there's another deadbeat inside the glass jar. Both of them are in tears, and until more info comes out, I really can't tell why. What I can say though is that during production of Ghost, Mystery Ben was originally going to make the spirits white, but instead chose to make them pink in order to keep the color consistent with Lewis's theme. So why would he go back to white? And why is there one inside a bottle? If we go back to what I was saying earlier, voodoo in pop culture is a bit of a dark art in many cases. Voodoo users practice strange rituals and spells to work with the supernatural, gaining knowledge, creating curses, and yes, communicating with the dead. They could also make pacts with these creatures for the promise of power and wealth, much like some of the other occultisms. There are other things that voodoo can do, but let's stay focused here. He could be using these deadbeats to keep himself on this plane of existence, or it could be the other way around. Those 6 spirits using Lewis for some reason. The music itself that the image is promoting is rather interesting. The lyrics asking, maybe that's some form of clue in saying that the spirits made Lewis into one of them? During freaking out, again I mentioned that Lewis was inside the heart. However, what I didn't point out was the deadbeats were too. They go right back into the locket once he's done talking to them. Everything is linked to that heart, which may or may not be his actual heart in some form of voodoo item. After all, many voodoo practices focus around the heart. But why would he torture himself like that and keep himself chained to this world? Well, dear watcher, the reason could be quite simple. We know that Lewis cared deeply for Vivi, to the point that he made a pact with these spirits in order to wipe her memory of him. That way she wouldn't feel the pain of his loss. Or perhaps his vengeance against Arthur was so strong, he asked the deadbeats to give him a second chance of getting revenge. I might be stretching here, but I also believe that Lewis might be from Louisiana. There's a few hints, but nothing really that can confirm this. But he likes spicy food, and he's always the first to try the newest creations of the Pepper family's newest dishes, and these creations are always sweet and spicy. Cajun cooking also calls for a lot of spice and heat. He could be from there, seeing as the town this takes place in, Tempo, Texas, clever girl, is not that far from Louisiana. Plus, their names are, after all, the Peppers. Another thing is that obviously the entire setting and characters were based off the Scooby-Doo show. And one of the most famous Scooby-Doo movies, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, took place in Louisiana. In that movie, the main villains use voodoo-like magic to keep themselves alive in a horrific and gruesome way. There's also the possibility that it could have been a third party. Introducing 2 new suspects straight from the dog's mouth. Or pony's mouth, or whatever mystery wants to be. Hey, I don't judge. Wait. Many of you might not know this, but in the official lore, Vivi works a full-time job as an assistant manager at a used bookstore called the Tomb's Tomb, and only works as a ghost hunter on the side. I bring this up because Vivi's boss at the store seems rather interesting. Her name is Duet, and she speaks in a monotone voice and doesn't really express emotion well. And to the best of Vivi's skills, she couldn't figure out anything of her past, leaving everything about her a mystery. I think I'm starting to get a theme here. The fact that she has no definite motives does make it hard for me to point the finger at her. But I can't exclude her from being a possible candidate. Also, look at the way she's dressed and her skin tone. Her garb looks very reminiscent of Mayan culture. Her skin color also indicates that it's possible she came from a more southern country. Mayans have a strong bond to religion, and most modern Mayans practice Catholicism but retain many elements of their traditional religion. There's a history of rituals, sacrifices, and other spiritual aspects in it, so Duet could be a part of that. However, it's a bit of a long shot, so that brings me to my other suspect, a girl named Cleo. She's a bit more interesting than Duet. I think she's in the lore for a good reason, other than to look like a Capcom character reject. Cleo here is another co-worker of Vivi's from the Tomb's Tomb. However, since Vivi is an assistant manager, I believe Cleo works under her. It also has been noted that she is younger than Vivi by at least a few years. Now I bet that a lot of you haven't really read up on the lore and are wondering why I suspect her the most. For you 10 dedicated fans, you'll already know what I'm talking about. Cleo is a die-hard 90s anime fanatic and cosplays all the time. She even goes to work looking like this, claiming that she does it to advertise for the job. But of course, nobody believes her. She's also asked to join the Mystery Skulls investigation crew on more than one occasion, but each time she is rejected and told that she's too young. She gets along well enough with Vivi, though she seems rather resentful at times. Why? The reason she wants to join them so badly is to, quote, catch me an undead boyfriend. It's awfully strange, isn't it? She seems so upset about not joining the crew while also wishing she had a boyfriend that was undead. Just like somebody else we know that's in this series. And stranger still, Vivi has lost all memory of him when he became an undead specter. That might all be a coincidence, sure, but I have actually met some crazy, vindictive fangirls in my life. I've seen firsthand what somebody with bad intentions can do. They lie, they manipulate, and bend others to their will. I'm not saying all fangirls are nasty or evil, but what I am saying is that obsessive people can be very dangerous. They will stop at nothing to get what they want. I also find it odd that suddenly a creature from Japan is suddenly hunting down yet another creature from Japan, while somebody in the lore is a huge fan of anime and Japan, going as far as to dress up as characters from Japanese lore and stories. It's all speculation, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt. I'm drawing conclusions from the evidence provided. It could go totally a different way from any one of my theories. Hopefully Ben will announce soon when Hellbent will be released so we can get some answers to these questions.